I think I always had like these dreams, right? Like you're so young and just like one day, and that one day can become day one if you really put your mind to it. What if we can all take back control of our lives and live the way that we've always dreamed of? Hardship is a blessing and a curse. It can fuel your fire and build your why. I don't think it's that hard to be kind. My chip on my shoulder is that I get to be at the top ranks and show that yes, you can be a kind person while doing it too. My mission is to help people build the confidence and conviction they need to take back their lives through achieving their career, creative, and personal goals. I don't have to do this, I get to do this.
Welcome back to Voice X Cuties. Today we're having a brilliant conversation with Chloe Shih, a creator Viv and I both look up to. Her storytelling is chef's kiss. She's also a product lead who has worked at some of the biggest tech companies that have come out of Silicon Valley. Even before she was laid off from Discord, her 9-to-5 earlier this year, her thesis has always been that every human yearns to create something of their own, our 5-to-9s, and she's made it her personal mission to share with the corporate girlies and boysies how to navigate, find, and balance their 9-to-5 with their 5-to-9s. We absolutely love this. In this episode, we talk about overcoming workplace challenges whilst finding her own voice, the power of leaning into our strengths, turning rock bottom moments into opportunities for growth, creative bucket lists, and embracing uncertainty during her adult gap year. We also nerd out over her Life PRD, or product requirement document, a concept she borrowed from the tech world to apply to her personal life to define her purpose, mission, and guiding principles. You all know how much I love structure and planning, and this Life PRD is on another level. We hope you feel just as inspired as we did having this convo with Chloe. Now, onto the episode. Chloe, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's so good to have you
here. Oh my God. I just want to say it's very rare for me. Actually, it's my first time being on like a woman-based podcast. Yeah, because podcasts are so like bro coded, so it's very rare to have that cozy like femme environment, and just like loving all the color palettes here.
Yay! It's so cute. It feels so soft.
It feels like safe. You know what I mean? Yeah, so I love that.
Yes.
Yeah, it is a voice hug. It is. It's a visual and a vocal hug. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
What's so special about Chloe as a guest today is that she is a fellow podcaster.
New podcaster.
Newly.
It's popping off though.
It really is. So your podcast, Jomo, you're a co-host with your friend Eric Way. And I think your catch line is something like spent our 20s working for other people and now are living our 30s betting on ourselves.
And this is the joy of missing out.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit more about the podcast and how it has been since the launch?
It was in the making for a while. I had the idea last year, and I really thought that sharing the stories behind people who are like in corporate careers but also building their own thing, I just felt that no one really talked about it that openly. My thesis has always been that for every person who does have a corporate career, who works at 9-to-5, trades off a little bit of their soul, and there's like always a little bit of a dream or a yearn to create something of their own, whether it be like pottery or like running or a creative thing or singing. They want full ownership that's theirs. And so that's what this pod is about. It's two friends catching up every single week about the nuances and nitty gritties, the emotional turmoil of building your own business and your own creative project. I think you fit very well in this category as someone who works and has a podcast. Like it's that feeling of, oh, well, I got to do this for work. But then when you lose that, what do you have? And that's a fear. So that's what Jomo is.
I love it. I totally relate to that. And so I'm so excited to hear about your story today, because I think a lot of us, we go about our lives trying to figure out who we are, what's our identity, how do we define ourselves. And it's so easy for us to put ourselves in these boxes. And sometimes this box is a 9-to-5. We're either this or that. You either choose this career path or you set your identity elsewhere. And I think that's what we think is so inspirational about your story, is that you don't let these constraints hold you back from exploring the things that truly interest you and pursuing the things that meet your needs. And I think in turn, when you choose things that meet your needs in that time in your life, you're bringing joy into it. And so, super excited to dive into the life choices that you have made.
Yes.
Before we go there, what is something that you have joyfully chose to miss out on?
Joyfully?
What did you choose to do instead?
I don't know. It was joyfully.
It's just what you've been spending the past few months on building this podcast.
I mean,
Jomo.
having a 9 to 5 and losing that was a blessing in disguise. So that was a big arc of my life. But I think I did unjoyfully miss out on being a dog mom. I kind of give up my foster dog. Well, like return my foster. I didn't give up any. I was always a foster to begin with. I was never a full owner, but I think it was a big realization of like right now it's one of the most pivotal years of my life, trying to figure out where I fit and how I want to design the life that is meant for my dreams and my aspirations and my strengths. And I am not ready for that. So I had to miss out, and it was like really painful. But the other side of it is missing out on, I guess, like partying, I don't know, like wording, a job, a lot of like casual friendship hangouts. Like I think this year was really, I can't go out to just hang out. I really need to spend time to create and figure out my stuff and not run away from it. A lot of confronting what am I going to do?
There's so many good gems in there that we'll all tease apart. I think before we get to the current gap year that you're on, how you made the decision to get there, and just all the decisions you've made along the way to get you to where you're today, which we both think it's a very amazing, inspirational place. Like I look at you and I'm just like, how do you do all the things that you do? How do you so boldly and bravely make all the decisions that you make and so confidently move forward in what you choose for yourself? And even knowing well enough that in this time in your life, even though you love your puppy, your foster dog, like you had to choose you in a sense at the end because you knew you weren't ready yet. So anyway, all of that is just to say all of that is coming, but we would like to kind of go back to
the roots.
Back to the roots, back to the very, very beginning, wherever it starts becoming relevant. From childhood onward, what were you like? What did you want to be when you grew up? And how truly or differently did that end up manifesting?
Well, I was born and raised in LA County in the 626 area, Wilson High School. What's up? And I was a really dumb kid. Like I was really like not there. I was really happy, but like not a very smart kid. I think like I almost like got held back a year.
Is it just like you weren't book smart?
I don't know. I don't think I was like present. I think I was just like always happy. Just alive, but not really.
That's amazing.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So a lot of people were like, "What? I'm worried about this." Like, I was a happy kid. And then I think in high school is when I started to work a lot harder and try to build something of my own. And then I joined a lot of clubs. They called me a club whore back then because I joined a lot of clubs, like Kiwin's Key Club, was co-president, and then I got bullied for it, like hella bullied. So I think it was something that gave me my first voice, something that taught me to be a leader, to have a purpose, to do something that's greater than myself. Moving into college, I continue to hold that. So I always did a lot, like community service, club events, hosting things. And then I took school very, very, very seriously. Went from pre-med to engineering, I think. Goodness. Yeah. And then I went to the Claremont colleges in SoCal and then did the 3-2 engineering program. So 3 years liberal arts and 2 years engineering at Columbia. Went on over, but I always never felt I fit anywhere. So actually I went to Pitzer College in the Claremonts, and that had like less than 10 Asians in my graduating class. It was like crazy. So it was the first time, and I think y'all might know this, in our area is majority Asian.
In the 66.
Yeah, and like Hispanic. And it was just, I never saw that many white people in my life. I was like, what? Excuse me? This is the world? So that was a shock. I stayed at Pitzer the first year. Then I did an exchange to Pomona College for 2 years. And then I went to Columbia. So everywhere I never felt there was a place that I could identify with and belong. And I had to rebuild. I think that was like a theme of my entire late teens and all my 20s, like rebuilding, restarting. After Columbia, I went to San Francisco Bay Area for my tech career. I think I was just like a very ambitious, wide-eyed, a lot of hope, willing to change the world type of girl, like super naive, but works really hard. And I learned a lot of hard lessons in tech. as someone who didn't come from many resources, like low income family, immigrant family, to other brothers, and we just didn't have any resources in tech. So I stumbled a lot, failed a lot, and learned a lot. And which is why I built this content platform to share my experiences as a woman of color in tech, and then to share like some of the trauma, and to share advice on how to navigate it all for people who don't have that way in. So I think that's the high level.
One quick question. How did you go from happy girl, not a care in the world, to all of a sudden being co-president of Key Club, and then wanting to make the world a better place?
Probably anime. Yeah, I would say like I love anime. I love a good underdog story. I love that stuff so much. Yeah, dude, it's just like the random nerdy girl in the back all of a sudden is like the heroine in the feature. Like, I love that stuff. I think I always had like these dreams, right? Like you're so young and just like one day, and that one day can become day one if you really put your mind to it. I really just wanted to make it happen.
That was a quote.
Let's go. Let's go. Quotes.
Before we continue with the episode, we want to drop in and share that our Voice Hug shop is now live. Our first launch, called the For All Seasons collection, includes 5 super cute greeting cards that can be sent to your besties throughout any season of their lives. I love writing cards as much as I love receiving them. There's something so meaningful about taking time out of our busy lives to reflect, put our thoughts onto paper, especially when it comes to expressing how much someone means to you and how grateful or proud you are of them. We designed the For All Seasons collection with that sentiment in mind. These cards are a great way to remind your loved ones that you are always in their corner, and we also hope they serve as a reminder to you of how amazing you are and that we're always rooting for you. With your help, let's spread more hugs around the world, one handwritten card at a time. You can find the collection on www.voicehugspodcast.com. Now back to the episode. All right, so you were in tech for your early career and you decided to dive into the world of content. Those worlds just seem so different. They are different. They're vastly different. And how did you go about deciding to share your voice and your story in this format rather than something else elsewhere? I think it's a much longer story because I think, you know, we have time.
Yes.
We all have time.
The beauty of a podcast, everyone. Y'all know in SoCal, a lot of the Asian YouTubers are here. So it's actually really close to a lot of us. Like we know friends of friends who know them growing up. And I've always been in those circles too. Once upon a time, I was a PA for ISA TV, which is a sister company of Wong Fu. So that was like an exposure where I got to meet a lot of creators at the YouTube space in LA, do events for them. And then in college, I used to help out my friend who used to be known as Slightly Musical, Albert Chang. He did like music covers, and then I would help film for him. And then I thought, oh, maybe I'm just not meant for this. So I decided to study really hard instead and then go into corporate and tech. In my second job, I guess in my first job, I went to Google. And then after that, I went to a startup in the live streaming space. I've always loved entertainment and media and wanted to see the intersection of that and tech, which is why I joined the startup live streaming for gaming. I led business development and creator partnerships for the gaming roster. So I'd fly down to LA every other week. We had a joint venture with 21st Century Fox, and we produced live shows with a ton of like amazing gaming YouTubers and Twitch streamers. So a lot of the people from the original like offline TV group, Travis Gafford, the League Championship Series, like a ton of esports groups. And it was fascinating to be behind the scenes. And I've always thought, oh, it would be awesome one day to be in front of the camera, but like never had the guts. Yeah, absolutely never, dude. I felt like a little ugly duckling. I felt like I didn't really, it's like, that's not for me.
It's nice for them, but like it'll never be me.
Yeah. What a strange cage to put your
self in.
Yeah, it's a strange cage. So that took a while for me to overcome. Eventually, I believe I went through some just like nightmares in career where my manager at the startup would yell at me and belittle me and scream at me and call me like I have no backbone. I'm a coward. I only want to do things that I'd be good at, which is why I wouldn't want to do this other thing that she wants me to do. And then I lost a promotion to a white guy who just joined 6 months ago, whose impact was less than 1% of the team metrics, whereas I was like over 30% and was the top performer and had been there for 2 years.
Working like late nights.
Correct. Yeah, I'd work late nights. Fridays, I'd go to a cafe on weekends to like continue work and build proposals. I worked until I shed blood. Yeah, it was stressful, but I was someone who I loved investing all my heart into something, like the thrill and the growth. And I feel so alive when I get to pour my heart. Once upon a time in college, this Korean international student came up to me and was like, Chloe, how are you so motivated? And I'm like, what?
I think the same thing.
How are you so motivated?
I'm like, I don't know. Like, I told her my story and she's like, yeah, I guess that makes so much more sense. You are motivated because you came from an essentially eldest daughter immigrant background. You don't have anything and you need to defend and fight for your place in the world. I am a Korean international student. I'm like from a wealthy family. We all went to private school. I have no motivation at Columbia University in New York City. And I'm like, what? And she's like, I literally, with my friends, we booked the cheapest Airbnb in Harlem just to feel something. I know. So they tried to sleep there overnight and they're like, yeah, we couldn't do it. So we left at 2 a.m. back to our dorms.
Wait, this is crazy.
This is crazy, right? But this is the reality for some people who don't have that grit, like from their upbringing. Like they're competent because they have resources. So they're definitely smart and they can get by, but everything in their life has been easy. So they have no like fervor. And so I guess hardship is a blessing and a curse. It can fuel your fire and build your why. I did not have advice for her back then. Yeah. Yeah, but I did ask a couple of people in my current days, like, how do you give advice for someone who doesn't have their fire? And the answer that I was given that I think makes a lot of sense now is just go do something really forking hard. Like whatever it is, take on something that you've absolutely never done before and push yourself to the limits. Then you find your thresholds. Then you find your breaking points. Then you find what lights you up, what gets you going. And then you understand yourself more deeply. It's something that you gotta do. Could be like a marathon, could be starting a YouTube channel and this podcast, could be starting a new job, moving to a new city, backpacking alone, doing 100 rejections. When I hit my lowest rock bottom, I had to leave San Francisco, go to Taiwan where my family's from, and then just heal away from all the people who I let take advantage of me, who I let like shake me to my core and make me lose my sense of self, my self-esteem, and rebuild who I am back up and be honest with myself, to come back and be like, I would never want to be silenced again. I never want to be erased. I never want my credit to be lost because I'm not visible enough, which is what people tell me. To have some executive, some director, some random person you don't really interface with take all the credit from you that you've spent like the last 3 to 6 months on, as a horrific feeling for you to invest years of your life and just to be told you got to wait your turn, you're too young, you're not, like, oops, too bad. That sucks. That really sucks. So then when I finally moved out into my own place and was in a better headspace and had the physical space, that's when I started content to share that advice, those stories that I felt no one would share openly, in hopes that someone out there who's going through the same thing can feel seen and process what they're going through, move on, move forward, and overcome and rise to the occasion.
Everything that you shared, how much you had gone through in all aspects of your life, right? Not just your job, where your job is such a huge part of your life because you spend so much time doing that. And for your supervisor, your manager at the time to talk to you that way, alongside going through these hard relationships, friendships, exes, whatever that might be, for you to be in that kind of a place and rise out of that, I think that totally shines in the work that you do. And it's so beautiful that you were able to take back your voice and use it in the form of content, even on a podcast now, right? It's like you're literally using your voice to speak up about what is important to you. I think that is really remarkable and just super cool about how you've approached these really crappy situations.
Yeah, it was a struggle. But that was, I think, for over 4 years ago, perhaps, when the pandemic started is when I really started, which is when a lot of people started. Good time.
It's come a long way.
I know. And I can't believe I'm here. I mean, watching you too. It's like, because you've been in the scene. And I think it wasn't until this year that I really took things more full time, since I got laid off in January and I took this first leap into myself, that I finally got to meet so many people that I've watched over the last decade. And it is such a privilege to be in this position today. So I don't know. This year is lit. Terrifying, but lit. Yeah.
We're proud of you.
Thank you.
We really are.
I want to continue. Yes.
So you started content while you're still working full time.
Oh, yeah.
And then the overlap was about 3 years?
Yeah, 3. I mean, probably more, because it was just the top of this year that it stopped.
And so I guess like you started to do content, and then while you're doing content at your previous job, you got laid off, and that video went viral.
That was crazy, dude. That was
That
wild.
video went viral on YouTube. What video went viral on Instagram and maybe TikTok? I'm not on TikTok.
Yeah, it went so viral. And Twitter, the worst. Like Elon Musk fanboys retweeted into like the pits of hell. I could not read it. I got so much hate. I was on Blind. Do you know what Blind is?
No.
It's it's like the anonymous Reddit forum for tech employees. Like you have
Anything anonymous is just bad news. Bad news.
The amount of it, and I don't try to look for myself, but unfortunately, the SEO on Blind is actually pretty good. So it does show up on a Google search when you search my name, and I'm like, yeah.
It's okay. There's good and bad. I'm sure you got the people who are meant to see you and the people who you meant to reach and the people who you've helped, I'm sure, along the way. Because like it's such uncertain times for so many people around the world and the economy and everything. Okay, so going back to the question.
The question.
The question is, how did you go about navigating this very big, hard, scary decision to decide to do you full time rather than finding another job? Because you were at one point considering like, should I go back to corporate? Should I go back to another startup?
Oh, I still am considering. Yeah. It's not out of my system. To be honest, I always thought maybe I wanted to do full-time creative, but I've never had the guts. Like me, someone who wants stability, yearns for it so much. The recognition, the how easy it is to tell your family and your friends, oh, I work at this so-and-so company. Oh, wow, that's so cool. You know, to find your own path is like such a laborious thing to do. It's easy to fall back on another brand identity. Yeah, so I commend anyone who goes and ventures off to pave their own path forward that no one else has gone on in their own lives. That's just hard.
It is.
It is. So when it did happen, it kind of gave it made the decision for me. A lot of people said it was a blessing in disguise, but I also made sure it was. So I did post a lot of the story on it. I immediately took action to figure out what was next. Like I talked to a bunch of representation, a lot of creators, a lot of friends. It was a huge like legal scary thing too, because like going viral in that light is not super positive. And then I lawyered up to make sure I was safe so I wouldn't like, I don't know, lose my severance. And I wasn't saying anything crazy. All the media outlets covered me and my story. They were in my DMs. I was like terrified that something bad would happen. They used my story and like painted this picture of, I don't know, someone who's like trying to go against the system. And I'm like, yeah, it's not that deep. I've just shared.
I just got laid off and I just shared a video.
Like, it's not that deep. It's like, are you trying to say something about corporate America and their lack of loyalty? And I'm like, dude, I don't know. It is what it is. I'm one single person. I am a coworker. I'm a tech worker. I don't got that much power. Leave me alone. And then there was a media show that also made fun of me on their show and used my asset and said I was like all of these things, and I had to go in the background try to take it down. But it was crazy. I was like, how are people in the top of Hollywood making fun of me for their own content? I'm just like a solo person out here. Like I'm not human to them. I'm just like a funny story for today's insert. And that was wild. Oh, but I did go viral in Asia, and that was hilarious because like news in Asia, which I told Ro the other day, basically I went viral in Singapore, in Taiwan, on Asia 1, Taiwan news. I was on every other hour, and it would say, beautiful manager, just got laid off from Discord, just bought a house.
Beautiful manager.
So different.
I know, I was like, what?
谢谢，谢谢大
Like,
家。
wait, that's so embarrassing, but I guess like a win is a win. What can I say? What can I say?
Aw.
Navigating all of that was bananas, and I learned a lot about the law, and I was like, oh my God, is this my sign to be a lawyer? And my lawyer was like, no, this is awful. Like, don't ever choose this path. And I'm like, okay, but that was cool. And then I went into like, all right, at least give myself time to try what does this creative path look like. So the first arc was doing what every other content creator, I believe, did, like at the top of the industry. What did they do? They got representation. They hired. They started working on all these brand deals. I took what everyone did and did it, and that sucked. And I realized I hated it. Okay, I didn't hate it, but I was like, this is dumb. This doesn't work for me because my profile is so different from I think the standard content creator who like has always been a creative since the beginning. I am the complete opposite. Like being creative is such a foreign muscle to me that I have to work so hard to do. I think I had many calls with my previous managers on like, here's my day-to-day, here's like, this is what I hate and this is what I really like. And I think we got to a place where the beauty of freelance and the beauty of being on your own path is you get to design your day-to-day. You get to let go of things you don't want to do and take on things that you're willing to face the consequences on. Having representation, you don't have to do that. Like think about why those people have it. Is that the reason for you?
And then real quick, representation is just a manager or an agent who's out there pitching you to brands to get you brand deals.
Correct. And they take 10 to 20% of your revenue of your sponsorship deals, which is nothing to snooze at. It gave me a lot of stress to be like, oh, I think I have to perform 20% more, but I'm just barely surviving my baseline. Finding my cadence and my pulse was really hard because the reference points I had were people who didn't have the cards that I was dealt with. They have completely different cards with completely different goals. They wanted to go to Hollywood. They want exposure to celebrities. They want to go into acting. Whereas I'm such a niche person. Like I don't think I am motivated by that whatsoever. So I had to learn on my own through trial and error what I liked and what I didn't like.
And all this was happening within like a few weeks.
Matter of weeks, yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, January, February. And then I got married in February for that yummy insurance. yummy insurance, Beverly Hills Courthouse. Love that place, by the way. Highly recommend it. So chill. I signed a contract to go to Taiwan because I've always wanted to elevate tech for Taiwan. So I built a course there for product management. I did like a media tour. I did interviews, and I like got to interview the previous general manager of Line Taiwan who founded Line Pay. It was really fascinating. First time working with local Taiwanese people. I struggled a lot with Chinese, so that was a big realization. My dream was to live like this life where I get to go to Taiwan and the US back and forth and make that part of my every year. So how do I manifest that, make that happen, knowing how much I love Taiwan, how I can contribute, how I can do business there. So that was that arc. And then during that same time, I'm like, what am I? Like, who am I? What am I willing to give up for the growth that I want? What are my principles? What do I create stories for? Because once upon a time, I had all these stories to share, and now those are kind of closed and done. Like I've done that piece. What is my unique contribution to this creative space of storytelling? And so I did what I only knew how to do, which is as a product manager, you write these things called product requirements documents, which is like, what feature do you want to build? What product do you want to build? And why? Explain yourself, pitch yourself to all of these executives to explain that you deserve the $1 million we're going to invest in you this year to build this thing. So that's what I did for myself. Wrote a little Life PDR. We'll pull it up.
I would love for you to host this little workshop for Viv and I, just to do ourselves too.
I mean, yeah, I've been trying to put together a template. Like I don't know how yet. I've been meaning to, but yes,
we can sit down and do it together.
Oh my God, yes, you would know. Yes, this is your thing. So in the first section, I have like learnings from essentially Q1, first quarter, January to March. So biz. And then I really reflected on like the problem I actually care about, and which is the worst feeling is having this inner desire to want to do something in life, but not being able to get there for some sort of reason, whether it be the glass ceiling, self-confidence, lack of know-how, lack of motivation. It leaves you feeling like you have no control over your life, and it takes over your life. You lose your self-esteem, you lose who you are. I've definitely been there, and it can lead people to dark places. But what if we can all take back control of our lives and live the way that we've always dreamed of? So I know that is the problem I care about. And then people are like, oh, why don't you just like start a company and start a startup? I'm like, bro, I don't think an app is going to solve the problem. I don't know. I feel like that's not the move. But rewriting that problem to maybe my North Star, my mission, what I remind myself when things get hard. Why am I here at 3 a.m. exporting 4K videos, which is a story for later, I guess, is my mission is to help people build the confidence and conviction they need to take back their lives through achieving their career, creative, and personal goals. Like, you know, career, creative, personal. Yeah. So pretty straightforward. I have a section on like, who am I building for? Who do I care about? I think it's important to envision the person that you want to write this for. I think that's what we do in product, because like this is how you prioritize, right? Like, does this video go in first, or does this project go in first? And who's that user, customer person we have in mind? So we have the lost youth, the early 20s person who's breaking into their careers. We have the young adults who are looking for a little bit more senior perspective. We have the corporate cog who's like kind of senior and in the machine, but they know they're in the machine. Yeah. And they're also looking for various ways to find fulfillment, for financial diversity, for more just to spice things up in life. And then you have the seniors, the senpais, who are like the executives who don't really have these problems, but want a way to connect and bridge themselves to the younger generations because of their own product, or those people are their customers for their companies. So these people are the ones I'm servicing, hopefully. But essentially, the person who I really serve is the underappreciated overachiever. Just like, yeah.
Your younger self.
Yeah,
your current self.
That is, I think when people say I feel so seen in my videos and stories, that's when I know like this is meaningful. Like, I'm not creating, I don't want to like crap on any of their content, but sometimes you look at videos and you're like,
but why?
But why? Yeah. Why did we spend this time to make it? And is this a net positive? And yes, it got my eyeball, but it now makes me feel worse. I don't love that. I have like a who is Chloe Shih and the breakdown of the bio, who is she today and who I want her to be tomorrow. So it kind of builds like this mental roadmap of getting there. But I also have like my strengths. So this is a really interesting positioning exercise for anyone who's either building a brand, like your own consumer brand, your own company or your own startup, or your own personal creative brand. It's just, you have to work with the cards you're dealt with, and that's your starting point. Like any startup, any company really has to start with their resources, their investors, their team, and that makes the story make sense. So I have this space of, compared to other career and business voices, what are my specific strengths? Compared to the lifestyle girlies, what are my specific strengths? In the world of content and video, everything is at your disposal. The very realistic, fearful question is, oh my God, they're doing that. Should I be doing that too? That is a chase, an endless chase, and you'll never win. We will never win. And I still fall into that trap regularly.
I do too.
Yeah, I admitted it to Ro earlier this week. I'm like, ugh, when I see that, it pains me. So then when that happens, you go back to your board, your list of, no, this was who I am and I need to stick to my guns here. So knowing where you position yourself is really important. I have a section of like guiding principles and values. This is a part where I talked about what are you willing to give up, or what are your values, core values in operating your day-to-day. And I have a couple. Number one is be world-class, but do it with kindness. I think I've met a lot of incredibly elite people in the world, and there's no reason for anyone to be an asshole. Like, absolutely no reason. I don't think it's that hard to be kind, and I hope I can, my chip on my shoulder is that I get to be at the top ranks and show that, yes, you can be a kind person while doing it too. Number two is like a reframe of life where it is, I don't have to do this, I get to do this. A lot of corporate is people telling me, you have to do this, you have to do this. And I say, I have to make the deadline. And that creates burnout, that creates resentment, that creates like this horrible relationship with dreading your 9 to 5. But when your day is filled with things you get to do, like you get to come out, life is the bubbles. Life is colorful.
Life is when you're a child again and you're just happy.
I know. You're like, wow, what? This is so fun. And number 3 is write from the heart and reach the soul. And I say this because in the world of tech and career and business, you've seen it. Take my course and it'll 10x your ROI. Like, this is why you're a failure. Like, this top 5 productivity. And you've probably seen the productivity space. It's just so in your face, chat GTBable, like no voice, just I'm better than you. And it doesn't come from an honest place, I felt. And then when I was trying to scale and operationalize, I realized I lost voice. And I'm like, this is creative storytelling. The whole point is to have your unique individual voice. And that I think scaling that part doesn't make much sense. And then 4 is a Y Combinator value, which is an accelerator program, which is do things that don't scale. I think you find your learning's a lot faster when you don't try to scale things. Like, it's more personable. It has more identity and value. So I think took that to heart, at least in this early stage of this career path. Number 5 is love it for the craft. This is a stylistic choice. You've seen creators out there and you're like, okay, that was extremely mid. Or you're like, yeah, you really didn't try. But some people do that and they get away with it.
Yeah.
And it's fine. Or people regurgitate videos and keep posting the same thing, recycle, and that was really low effort. And I think there's value to that quantity play, but I, as a person, cannot really enjoy it. So I do love craft. I appreciate it, and I hope to emulate that continuously.
You definitely do.
I try.
Yeah.
Number 6 is play the infinite game. As someone who started this in my 30s, more full time, I feel really behind. Like, oh, I suck at this and that, and I'll never be a good designer. I'll never be a good storyteller, producer. But if I look at it that way, then I will forego this path completely. Like, I won't have success in it. And similar to singing, I think my mentality was that I'll never be a good singer anyway, so why try? But my thought has changed to I'd rather be 35 and know how to sing than 35 and not know how to sing. And because that's like the alternate path you're deciding between. So that's why I started taking design classes this year. And then for everything, I'm just going to pretend I have the rest of my life to continuously get better at it. And if I think about my career, I think you said this, we overestimate what we can do in a year, but underestimate what we can do in 10 years.
It's from someone else.
No, it's just from Rowena. Yeah. And she was the one who invented that phrase. But yeah, I hope to be surprised what 10 years later, what I can do if I continuously be open to learning. I think number 7 is interesting. Bring joy and peace to the hero's journey. A mentor told me I'm currently on my hero's journey right now. And I think that within business, people think you have to have insane sacrifices. You have to wake up at 5 a.m. and like run 10 miles and take a cold shower and eat like bison liver and and then not have any friends and work hard and be ultra sweaty and be like this crazy person in a garage and like operate off of so much grit that it's scary. And I want to bring more joy and peace to that path. Y'all watch Freerin? The anime? Oh god, it's an anime about this elf who slays the bad person, and it's the journey after the big slay. The big slay. And it's like the peaceful journey, the peace era. Yeah, so it's kind of like that. I think 8 is, there's 10 total. 8 is be the bridge for the everyday worker finding their place in work and life. I think being bridges is where I want, so connection's a big piece. 9 is lead by example and not by prescription. I just want to not tell people what to do. I never want to create a one-up, one-down relationship with the viewer that I'm better than you, therefore you should listen to me. I am some successful whatever person, and you're not. Live like me. It's more like a peer, like a coworker. Like, oh, I don't know if this is going to help. This is what I went through. This is just some food for thought. Pick out what you want and leave what you will. And then 10 is how we do anything is how we do everything. So those are my core principles. as I figure out what to do, at least I know how I will do it.
I'm floored.
Wow. Yeah, I think
I'm floored.
one quick thing that just came to my mind was you're obviously in a very tumultuous place in your life.
Yes, so
and
tumultuous.
there were so many ways you could have tackled everything that life threw at you, but you chose again to rise above and stick to what you know. Go back to your roots of what do I know and how can I use what I know to get me to where I want to be, rather than allowing your circumstances and all the crazy press and all the crazy people get the best of you. And I think that is very inspirational, aspirational, like encouraging, because I don't know all of what you know, right? Of what you just shared. I would seriously love to get a template or work on a template with you.
Yeah, let's do it.
And we'll make it happen. But then I similarly, even though we went through different journeys, like when something bad happens, there are things that I believe we can all rely on, you know, and even within the document that you created for yourself, the very simplest version is just a strengths and weakness thing that you create for yourself. And within that, you know, let me take my strengths and see where I can go and like how I can push to get me to where I want to go and like where do I even want to go. So I think, yeah, all of that is just to say, no matter what cards were dealt, I truly believe, especially through your story and, you know, everything that you've gone through, that the universe will never give us things we cannot handle. And so if we are faced with something, we can always turn inward to figure out what the path forward is.
Yeah, turning inward is like what you should do, but so hard to do. It's so hard. And everyone has a different way of turning inward. Yeah, I think that's the biggest learning. But I think it's cool to hit rock bottom and learn how to turn inward, because when it does eventually happen again, you'll know like there was a process and you've done it before, you can do it again.
I love how, you know, like throughout this conversation, there are not a lot of rock bottoms, but there are points in your life where things have happened and you had no choice in it. Let's just use this layoff as the most recent example. It's so easy to put ourselves in this like victim mindset. We're like, oh my God, all these crappy things happened to us.
For sure.
And look around and compare ourselves, you know, now that we're in our 30s and it's so easy to see what other people are doing and ask ourselves, you know, am I doing enough? People have been in the creator industry, for example, for years, and you're entering it full time for the first time. I just think that the way that you've been able to reframe, and I think in a lot of the things that you've shared, there's an element of reframing your opportunities. You get to do this, not you have to do this. There was something else that you shared that I really liked, but having that mindset to make it more of this opportunity to achieve these things as you share that. And I think as you share your story, that becomes what is so inspiring about your voice and your unique journey. Even as you're sharing all of that, I'm like, wow, like I really want to root for you and I really want to help you get there. And I believe that I can get there with you holding hands. You know, like that's kind of like the feeling that I got. And so I think there's just so much heart in what you're doing. And there's so much, even though you don't have the specific answers, you know where you stand. That is the first step in figuring out, how am I going to get there? It might not be the destination at all, but it's just as you approach everything in your life, these are the principles, these are the values that you want to keep in mind. We really love and appreciate that you're able to share that with our listeners.
Thanks for listening. Shout out to you right here.
Thanks for being here.
I know.
Thanks for being you.
Yeah.
I think one thing that just came out of what we both just shared and what you just shared at the end of moving forward with the cards that you're dealt and just like having a good attitude, you seem like a generally very happy, optimistic, or maybe not happy, but optimistic and positive person. Mm-hmm. Like as Viv shared, like things will happen, then you will reframe, make peace,
I feel like
change your
bad
mindset.
things happen in your life and you're just like, smile, everything's gonna be okay. And you like approach it with that kind of attitude with such ease.
To an extent, I will say the hidden layer here.
What does angry Chloe look
Literally,
like?
I am a Gretzko. I am
A what?
a Gretzko, the you know the Netflix show about the angry red panda who's like in the Hello Kitty Sanrio like world. where I think in the daytime she's like this corporate worker, but at night she like gets so raged that she screams heavy metal at karaoke to let out her inner anger.
Wow.
Yes, I wish I were as peaceful and joyful as this resting smiling face I have, but this is not intentional. This is just how my muscles contract. This is just how it is. I will say my spirit animal is a teddy bear, but like with a knife. Like looks like a cinnamon roll, will kill you. So I very happy, but I'm also extraordinarily honest with myself and the people around me. And I don't know, maybe it's like been having bullied or seeing other people get taken advantage of, or like being in a place where I let people cross my boundaries, like no longer. I guess learning that saying no to someone else is saying yes to yourself was a big one. Learning to draw your boundaries and teach other people that other people have boundaries is a big service. I think I need to see, like I needed one person at a time, need to check people, check their ego, check my ego back. I'm open to it. Like I try to be as confrontational as possible, or like more honest than confrontational.
I feel like it's maybe not necessarily as confrontational. It's more like you're just honest, and it comes from a good place rather than you're honest, but it's like to soothe or to, pet your own ego.
Yeah, I will say, I think I try to protect my inner peace a lot. I think that's like my most valuable resource. Recently, I worked with some of my friends on this creator finances workshop that we put together. Like we were spending weeks and weeks on making the deck. And then when the time came, my friends, to my and our expectations, really fell short and fumbled. The presentation did not go as well. I invited like 50 of my creator friends. My social reputation, my social capital is on the line. And the fact that I didn't see them prepare up to the place where we had been preparing for really hurt me. And this was not like a job that any of us had to do. It was something we all wanted to do, which is why it was so important for us to do it right for the mission, for what it was. And the fact that it didn't happen and that we're not doing it again, I was in this like weird state of, I could just let it go, because it literally doesn't impact me, but out of love and out of hope that if and when we do this again or they do it again, I want to give the tough love. And I did give feedback at that right after the event saying like, look, I think we all tried our best and I get why today happened. And I think it's above the baseline of what a good event was, but our expectation, what we prepared for was here and we were here. When this happened, I felt frustrated. When this happened, I panicked. I was scared. I really don't know what went wrong, and I really did not appreciate you guys not pulling through, and I needed you to pull through. I think having those conversations is like a very me thing to do. It kind of is painful, but I think everyone walked away with it really well. They reacted so well, but it was out of love. Yeah.
And then also, for what it's worth, the event went well. I think, and then friends came up to you and were also like, it was great.
Yeah. It was like baseline well.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think something that came out of what you shared is these things happen in our lives. And if you approach it from a place of how it made you feel, no one can really take that away from you. And I think even just the way that you shared that, you were sharing your frustrations, you were sharing your disappointment. And if these people care and are your friends, everyone is at a different place. They might not be able to hear it in the moment, but maybe they'll come back to it. I think it's important to have these really hard conversations and speak from a place of your feeling, because ultimately, if you don't say anything, you are not being true and honest to yourself. And so that's how, resentment can build, or like insecurities can build, like all these other things can build. But when you're able to have that conversation with a friend and it works, that is the growth that makes developing a relationship so meaningful in life, right? It makes them even more special to you and you special to them.
Agreed. Yeah. It's tough. So that's how I live, as honestly as I can. What a scary way to live.
I love it. Danger. You're finding your voice. Yeah. I love it. You have your voice.
Oh, I'm working on it.
You've had your voice.
Yeah.
Now you're sharing your gift of your own voice with everyone else, for everyone else to find their own voice, like us too.
And you're using your voice to hug people.
Yes, and that's what voice hugs is.
During one of our little breaks, Viv and I were like, we love the way your brain works.
Oh my God,
Thank you.
We would really love to have a workshop with you.
I love workshopping.
Yeah.
I love having a good structure because it helps me build a forcing function. Because like when the 3 a.m. nights hit and when you're like, God, I hate everything, you have to go back to your original rationale, which is that paper, that form. When you write it, put to paper, when you explain it simply to someone else, it's so powerful. And that's why I love it. But also as a product manager, this is all I do. So if you have a problem, I have a framework is my motto. There you go.
We love that.
Yeah. Because we always talk about, you make sure you have your why, your purpose, but that it's so vague and we don't know what that looks like. And I think just hearing your breakdown, it's so clear, so crisp, so easy to follow. And at any time you can refer back to that thing.
Yeah, it's also a working document. You live and you learn. I didn't have answers for months on it. Just takes time to have this question, write it down, and to find yourself in a situation where that question is confronting you, and then you realize what your gut tells you about it. We'll work on it. Hopefully we can share a link to it sometime in the description below. Sometime. TBD.
One thing that I want to kind of circle back to that you brought up that I thought was very interesting, and it was also something that I spent months on when I first started my YouTube channel, which is plotting my life in accordance to the hero's journey. And I think with that, I did it because I wanted to, like, my whole thing was I wanted to share my life story in hopes of helping other people. You feel like you're currently now embarking on your hero's journey, right? I think you've already been on your hero's journey, but there's this like new arc that's up and coming or that you're currently on. I think one really important thing within the hero's journey is just the highs are high and the lows are low. It's all baked in. So it's like, I think the hero's journey is this thing created by Joseph Campbell. He's like a very well-known, renowned, like amazing storyteller. And this is what all the script writers, screenwriters, writers kind of reference. Like if you think of any
Disney
book, any like popular fiction stories, anything, it all kind of has this hero's journey. And yeah, I think going back to what I was saying, it's just, there are going to be really amazing things that happen while you embark on this journey. There are going to be very not amazing things when you embark on this journey, but it's not linear, and it's also not, I'm going to embark on this thing and I'm going to succeed. It's, I'm going to embark on this thing and it's going to like go all these zigzag different ways. I might feel like I reverted back to before I started on this journey. I might move forward 1,000 steps and then, one day wake up and feel like I'm at rock bottom again. It really is the journey and not the destination. And I think that's why it was so beautiful that you brought that up. And it's just a good reminder for all of us that, on days where you're just so hard on yourself of, I should have already been here. Why didn't I start sooner? I'm already 30. How come I'm blah? To just be nice to ourselves and give us grace, and to reframe as you did with, I would rather be 35 and know how to sing than I would rather be 35 and not know how to sing. I think that's just, it's something so simple, but it's so powerful.
Yeah. It affects our day-to-day decisions of like, do I finally start that thing today and suck at it for years to come, for the hope that one day I can finally do it. That's a tough thing to do. Hero's journey. Hero's journey.
As you continue on this hero's journey, what are you looking most forward to this year?
The biggest question is, what am I going to do moving forward? And I hope to answer that in the next 6 months or so. It's been 7-8 months at this point, and I'm like, damn, this be hard. But I have gone through so many like questions, and I answer the question, answer that. That's kind of like how I operate. I don't know if I'm going to go back to corporate or if I will start my startup or do full-time creative. I've learned a lot of interesting things, like content for the sake of content, not really interesting to me. Corporate is awesome, and I really did thrive, but I think it's too restraining for the identity I built outside of corporate. So there are very few paths that would allow me to have both, and I must have both. Doing content only disregards my entire identity in corporate, in tech, in building for the forefront of technology, which I am really, really passionate about. I can't really do that many unboxings on a video. Like that's like, I don't really know. I don't get it, and I just can't do it. But Yeah, so there's that. I'm looking forward to how I feel at the end of my creative bucket list. So how I'm approaching this year, don't have any answers. I just have this creative bucket list of things I want to accomplish and then see if I can see a future in it. And I don't think I'll know until I finish. So I guess what's on the creative bucket list, you might be wondering. Oh, great question, listener. I really want to produce a 30 lessons by 30 short form series where it's like so pure, like a homage to my 20s, all the lessons, and make it kind of like a show, one at a time for 30 days straight. So I'm writing that right now. Extraordinarily daunting, a lot of writing, not great at writing, but it's a great challenge. And I want to build a newsletter. This is real advice, real stories for the 9-to-5s and 5-to-9s, all the tactics, the guides, the strategies, the long form, I guess, convoluted like thought processes and exercises I go about my career, my tech career journey, as well as my creative journey. That's like a very tactical thing. I think there's only so much I can put into a 10-minute YouTube video, far less in a 1-minute short form, some in a 1-hour podcast, but I think I need that structure. And then I'm working on an original song. I know it's like a musical-esque song about, I think it's a little bit about my life, but I didn't write it. Someone else wrote it. I'm like, what?
That is so exciting.
I know. It's so cool. It's so cool. It's just for fun, really. So we were recording this past weekend. The song sounds incredible. And then we got to shoot the music video too. And I shared with Ro my moonshot dream, which is The Office and Ted Lasso, but with Asian people. So like imagine a mockumentary, Office rom-com, silly, like just with Asian people, but not on the nose. We don't talk about it. It's just there. It's like a background thing.
We are rooting for you.
I know.
I want to be a part of this journey
Yes.
with you in any way we can help support.
Yeah.
I'm excited, terrified. I'm terrified because of the timeline. That's what's scary.
But I think one interesting thing to point out, again, right at the very end, is that even though you don't have answers, you are able to give yourself some sort of framework, even if it's just, I want to check off these few things before I really make the decision, or I know I'm going to continue having questions as I go along, and I'll keep answering until I get to a point where I'm satisfied. And I think that's the beauty and like probably also the really daunting thing of choosing yourself, because if you're starting off as a blank slate and it's just a white piece of paper, you look at it and you're like, okay, so when is enough? Like, when do I know I've made it, or I didn't, or I want to continue, or I want to quit, or I want to go back? The beauty in life is that you can paint this blank piece of paper however you want, and there truly is no right or wrong answer.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, when we asked you the question or when you started talking, I was like, oh, maybe she has these like things that she really wants to do, or maybe she has like a very thought out 6-month, 1-year plan, which it's pretty thought out, right? But it's not as like structured or detailed as I would have imagined.
Restricting.
Yeah.
It's not as restricting.
Yeah. It's very, for as structured as it is, it's still very free flowing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's important to me. Y'all read the book Designing Your Life by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans?
I reference it a lot.
I love it.
I read a few pages.
I mean, it's a great book.
I think I watched one of their videos online.
I think you got enough. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's like in business and products, we do such a great job finding and iterating the products that make so much money, but we don't do that with the most important things, which is our own life. Almost so nice to not have an answer, to know that that's actually not the point. Like, you're not supposed to have it, and you're supposed to try finding it, and it's about the story you tell when you find it. So that gives me a lot more ease. It's like, oh yeah, lit. I don't gotta turn anything in today. I gotta go figure it out.
Where can our listeners find you, Chloe?
You can follow along on the rest of my journey at my Instagram, chloe.shih, and then my YouTube.
S-H-I-H?
Yeah, S-H-I-H. My YouTube's Chloe Shih. My podcast is Joy of Missing Out on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Pod. And I do have a LinkedIn presence. So that's just my name, first name, last name. I'm one of the biggest LinkedIn creators you'll ever meet. Yeah, like,
wow.
I don't know what is up with that, but LinkedIn is dope. Educational content for the win. And I hope you guys all flourish in your careers wherever you are.
Aww.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Oh, I appreciate it.
Boys hug.
Boys hug.
Boys hug. Boys hug.